What if your peaceful life was suddenly disrupted by the sounds of war? Imagine waking up to a reality where tranquility is replaced by tumult, where everyday routines give way to survival instincts. This is a glimpse into the situation in Ukraine, a nation that found itself in the throes of war. In the early days, the initial invasion by Russia was met with disbelief. A world, largely at peace, watched in stunned silence as the sovereignty of a nation was violated. The global community was quick to condemn the aggression, but words fell short in the face of the unfolding crisis. The impact on the Ukrainian people was immediate and profound. Lives were upended, families were torn apart, and a nation was plunged into uncertainty. The bustling streets of Kiev, once filled with the hum of everyday life, echoed with the sounds of sirens and gunfire. The familiar sights of schools, parks, and homes were replaced with the grim reality of war. As the days turned into weeks, the dire situation unfolded. The world watched as the once vibrant nation grappled with the harsh realities of conflict: the loss of lives, the destruction of infrastructure, and the displacement of people. The resilience of the Ukrainian people shone through this adversity, their spirit unbroken in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, the world was not just a bystander. Nations across the globe rallied to provide humanitarian aid, hoping to alleviate the hardships faced by the Ukrainian people. But even as aid flowed into the country, the reality on the ground remained grim. The conflict showed no signs of abating, and the people of Ukraine were left to navigate the harsh realities of a nation at war. In the blink of an eye, Ukraine was thrust into a conflict that would change the course of its history. The echoes of this conflict reverberate around the world, reminding us of the fragility of peace and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The first year of the war was a time of turmoil and uncertainty. As the conflict in Ukraine unfolded, the world watched with bated breath. Major battles erupted, the likes of which hadn't been seen on European soil in decades. The war was marked by brutal combat, with cities and towns in the crossfire. It was a year where the very essence of humanity seemed lost in the fog of war. International reactions varied. Some countries chose a path of neutrality, while others took more active stances. Israel, for instance, historically maintained a neutral position in the conflict. Yet, when former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned to office, he considered a shift in policy towards supporting Ukraine. This move was influenced by a multitude of factors, including the reduced Russian threat in Syria and the opportunity to test defense systems against Iranian weapons. Meanwhile, the United States reaffirmed its commitment to its allies. President Joe Biden made a bold move by visiting Israel, his second visit to a war zone in that year. His trip aimed to underscore the U.S.'s support for Israel's security, while also advocating for the protection of innocent civilians caught in the conflict. But what of the Ukrainian people themselves? The ongoing impact of the war on them was immeasurable. Lives were upturned, families separated, and homes destroyed. Yet, amidst the chaos, the spirit of resilience shone through. The Ukrainian people stood strong, facing the adversity of war with a courage that was inspiring. As the year drew to a close, the international community continued to grapple with the war's implications. What would it mean for the global balance of power? How would it shape the geopolitical landscape? And most importantly, what would become of the Ukrainian people? The first year of the war set the stage for a protracted conflict with no clear end in sight. As the war entered its second year, the struggle for survival became more intense. The escalation of violence was palpable as the conflict ravaged on. This was no longer just a battle for territories, but a desperate fight for life, for hope, and for the future of a nation. The second year was marked by an unfolding humanitarian crisis. The everyday reality for the people of Ukraine was one of survival against the odds. Homes were converted into makeshift shelters as families huddled together, seeking solace amidst the chaos. The echoing cries of children, the fear etched on faces, the brave smiles attempting to mask the pain, these were the real stories of the second year. As the streets of Kiev turned into battlegrounds, the world watched in despair. International response continued as nations grappled with their role in the conflict. Humanitarian aid poured in, but it was a race against time, a race against a war that seemed to have no end in sight. Yet, in the midst of these harrowing times, the resilience of the Ukrainian people shone through. Their will to fight, to resist, and to survive was more potent than the mightiest of armies. Communities bonded together, pooling resources, sharing what little they had. Amidst the bleakness of war, the spirit of unity became their beacon of hope. The resistance was not just on the streets, but in every home, every heart. The world bore witness to a nation standing tall against adversity, a nation refusing to bow down. The Ukrainian people, their struggle for survival, were writing a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. The second year of the war was indeed a year of heartbreak, a year where the cost of freedom was paid in tears and loss. But it was also a year of resilience, a year of unyielding spirit. It was a year that saw the Ukrainian people continue their fight for freedom, refusing to let their spirit be broken. The second year of the war was marked by heartbreak and resilience as the Ukrainian people continued to fight for their freedom. In a globalized world, no conflict exists in isolation. Indeed, the war in Ukraine is a clear testament to this. As we delve into the role of other nations in this conflict, we witness a tapestry of support and opposition, shifting dynamics and geopolitical implications that extend far beyond Ukraine's borders. Israel, a nation historically maintaining neutrality in the conflict, has provided humanitarian aid to Ukraine, while carefully abstaining from supplying weapons. Instead, they've offered intelligence and technical support to counter threats. This approach, a legacy of former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, may be on the verge of a shift. A shift influenced by a reduced Russian threat in Syria, an opportunity to test defense systems against Iranian weapons, and a potential chance to improve relations with the Biden administration. The United States, on the other hand, has taken a more assertive stance. With President Biden's visit to Israel amidst the conflict, the U.S. has made it clear that it supports Israel's right to self-defense, while also advocating for the protection of innocent civilians on both sides. This visit, a testament to the U.S.'s commitment to peace and stability, underscores the escalating violence's global implications. The war in Ukraine has also had a ripple effect on the geopolitical landscape. This conflict, far from being a local issue, has triggered a domino effect of shifting alliances, changing priorities, and evolving strategies on the global stage. From the Middle East to North America, nations across the globe have felt the impact of this conflict, directly or indirectly. They've been drawn into the fray, forced to take a stand, to offer support or opposition, to reconsider their policies and strategies, and to face the reality of a world where no conflict is truly isolated. The war in Ukraine is more than a struggle for survival for the Ukrainian people. It's a catalyst for change, a spotlight on the interconnectedness of our world, and a stark reminder of the far-reaching implications of conflict. The war in Ukraine has not only affected the Ukrainian people, but has also reshaped the global political landscape. In the face of such a complex and ongoing conflict, what can we take away from these events? Let's consider the impact of the war and the lessons that we can learn. We've witnessed the unseen reality of war, the turmoil of the first year, and the struggle for survival in the second. We've seen how other nations have reacted and the roles they've played in this conflict. At its core, the war in Ukraine is a testament to the human spirit and the resilience of those fighting for their freedom. It's a stark reminder of the cost of conflict, not just in terms of military expenditure and geopolitical shifts, but in human lives and the daily struggles of the people living through it. The international response to the war has been varied. We've seen neutrality, support, and sometimes silence. Israel's stance, for instance, has evolved over time, reflecting the changing geopolitical landscape and the complex interplay between national interests and humanitarian concerns. The war also underscores the importance of staying informed and being empathetic towards ongoing global issues. It's easy to get caught up in our daily routines and forget that there are places in the world where people are fighting for their basic rights and freedom. This war has made clear that every nation has a role to play, whether it's through diplomatic negotiations, providing humanitarian aid, or simply speaking up against injustice. It's a reminder that our actions, or lack thereof, can have far-reaching effects. Moreover, The war has highlighted the importance of international cooperation in resolving conflicts and the need for a collective response to global crises. It's shown us that we are all interconnected, and that peace in one part of the world can have a positive ripple effect on the rest. As we move forward, let's continue to keep ourselves informed, show empathy, and strive for a world where conflicts like this become a thing of the past. After all, it's only through understanding and compassion that we can hope to build a more peaceful and inclusive world. As we reflect on the war in Ukraine, we are reminded of the human cost of conflict and the resilience of those fighting for their freedom.